I mean, there are a lot of important ways in which this story, even biographically, connects with some of our dilemmas today. And one of those roots goes right through Pool. So after Simulmatics goes bankrupt in 1970, Pool emerges as a leading theorist and really prophet of the internet. He makes a political switch. He becomes a neocon. He supports Richard Nixon in 1972. And he's something of a libertarian with regard to technologies of communication. So he writes a series of books, including Technologies of Freedom, that are really influential on Stuart Brand and other of these kind of Ken Kesey related kind of Fred Turner counterculture, cyberculture people who are trying to imagine, like a John Barlow, like trying to imagine the commercial internet or the open internet. They are all deeply influenced by Pool, who has said, and one of the things that emerges from his experience from Simulmatics, which is brought low by people protesting its immorality and its illegality, right? Pool says, we're building this whole new communications infrastructure. It needs to be utterly deregulated. And that, indeed, of course, is what comes to pass thanks to Newt Gingrich and Bill Clinton signing the 1996 Telecommunications Act, which is essentially authored by Gingrich, but which actually has its intellectual origins in the very elaborate writings of Ithiel de Sola Pool. So there is a really kind of direct line through Pool from Simulmatics and its particular vision to the internet that we have. But there's also this there's another really important connection, which is one of the things that's really interesting about looking at the 1960s is the 1960s was obsessed with us. I mean, if you think about Stanley Kubrick's 1968 film 2001, right? Like here's a vision for the year 2001. Or there's this great Walter Cronkite documentary called The Office in the Year 2000. I think that's made in 1967. There's just, in the late 1960s, people are obsessed with thinking about what the 21st century will look like, because there's an awareness that there's incredible technological change taking place at the same time as there is tremendous political upheaval throughout the 1960s, right? So it's an era not unlike our day, except that there's a lot of like, what will the future bring? So there are a lot of people who are writing like little prophecies. It's the beginning of futurism, like Alvin Toffler and all these people. Or futurism is kind of a thing that Toffler's Future Shock comes out in 1973. Like there's an obsession with the future and whether it's going to be great or whether it's going to be terrible. And in general, people who've been involved in technological change in the 1960s. See, unlike, say, a J.C.R. Licklider, who imagines this kind of universal library of knowledge, a lot of them think there are going to be some very bad knock-on effects of what people, especially who are involved in the ARPANET, are building. So in 1968, Pool, who collaborates extensively with Licklider, who comes to MIT at that time. They undertake a series of projects together. There's actually a great magazine issue, I think it's called Science and Technology, and it's a dual feature of Licklider and Pool. And it's a series of essays about their visions for technologies of the future, computer technologies of the future. And it's just at the moment when computers are moving from being storage devices to communications devices, which is something that is largely lost on the general public. But Pool is among the people who sees that coming. He has been involved at every stage in thinking about the consequences of these emerging technologies. And he's very, very smart. And technologies of communication is his area of expertise. So he, in one of the many essays that he writes around 1968, predicting what the world will be like in 50 years' time, so that would be 2018. He, in fact, contributes an essay to a book called Toward the Year 2018, where like leaders in different technologies are asked to predict what the world will look like in 2018. Everything that Pool says will happen by 2018, in fact, did happen. He's not wrong about really anything. But one of the things, to get back to your question, one of the things that he predicts is that there will be what he calls personal newspapers. When you read the news, you will read the news that is directed to you and to you alone. It'll be custom fit to your political interests, to your consumer choices, to who you are, demographically. And he says like that will create a very atomized electorate and in fact will destroy the party system, because a party system involves coalition building, right? It involves people with all kinds of different interests seeing that they share a broad set of political convictions about what change is necessary. That's why it was so stable for so long, that the Republican Party was the party of business and the Democratic Party was the party of labor. It's really about 1968 when Pool is making that prediction that starts to break down. And we move from party politics well into interest group politics and then, down into identity politics, and I think today to some like very hyper-personalized politics. But Pool very much saw that coming, and he saw it coming as well a number of other changes that really would not have been predictable by most people. It's his intimacy with Defense Department work, with what's going on in ARPA, with the incredible research that's going on at MIT. He spends a lot of time at Stanford as well. He is on the ARPANET. He has an email address in 1971. Like he is very much in the know. And it's a rare person at that time who both has the technological sophistication to understand what's going on in the world of hardware and software, but who is also a political theorist, political scientist who can think about political implications. So he's quite a distinctive voice in that way.